So let's get into some questions. Now, cloud gaming, it's still, I would argue, somewhat in its infancy. We've seen a few services come and go over the last 5 to 10 years, but some are absolutely flourishing. Stephen, we'll start with yourself. In terms of cloud gaming, why do you think it's not mainstream yet?
I think it's not mainstream yet, just because of the timing. So we had to bring it here. Like, people have heard about cloud gaming, and there's this, concept with it that it doesn't work or the networks are too slow, and it's had a bit of a rocky start because it's taken so long to develop. But really, in order for cloud gaming to be mainstream, it has to be here because it's so latency dependent. So we've only been operating it here for about 2 years. So that was the first step, is to actually have the servers here. There's about $15 million worth of GPU and compute that we had to bring over here and connect up so that it can, because it's all about output latency. So I think we've crossed that step, and I think we just need more and more people starting to use it, because when you actually do try it, it's actually quite impressive that it does work, and it gets rid of that stigma that cloud gaming's too laggy. And then I think we need to, keep bringing more power into the system. So, streaming at 2K, 4K, high refresh rates. And then, as more content comes to the platform, I think those are the next steps to become mainstream. But, those are the things that we're working on. And yeah, that's why I feel it's kind of where it's at. It's still very much in its infancy, but it's because of those things.
But it's getting there by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
What about you, Develique? In terms of why gaming isn't mainstream yet? Do you think, I don't know, are people ready for it potentially, or do you think it's a
I
technology
think it's definitely been a slow burn over the years, so it hasn't been something that's, straight away come out and people know about it. So kind of been, I guess, drip feed coming through. So I think people are still very attached to their, setups that they've got. So I think, when it reaches the stage that people can, maybe start reconsidering whether they've got a different option to start gaming on. So yeah, definitely getting there.
And what about yourself in terms of obviously being a streamer, and you're heavily into using different, obviously a range of different games. But do you think cloud gaming gives you that ability to be competitive still in the games that you play?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've given it a go on GeForce now and tried a different variety of games like Starfield, where it's a bit more graphics intense, and it did run it really, really well. And then I even played more, I prefer FPS games, so I did play Apex, and I was able to get in the game and actually play it, and it was good.
Awesome. And Brad, what do you think in terms of cloud gaming and it not necessarily being mainstream yet? What needs to change potentially for that to be the case?
I think, like Stephen said, the latency has been one thing, just generally in the speeds. We're a big country and the infrastructure needs to be there. I think media-wise, with also things like Google Stadia come and go, which has its own story inside the gaming community. So that's something then that people kind of build their own perceptions about why that might be and what the product is. But I also think it's marketing as well, just generally. Like we are, like you both said, we're a console and PC first country. We're lucky that we can afford good things, and we've grown up playing with those previously. So any kind of behavior change generally, like one is tech, and I think the other is awareness, and just actually knowing about it and kind of trialing it yourself. Like I hadn't played it either, same as Dev, before we had the codes for GeForce now. So the experience is actually, was pretty much exactly what I would be playing anything else, which is not what you would expect when you read some of the forums and places we hang out about what the experience is.
Nice. So we touched on it there. Obviously, Brad, you mentioned in terms of hardware, we're kind of used to consoles and having great hardware in country. With cloud gaming, obviously, there's a couple of key components of it. There's the hardware, which is hosted, but there's also hardware and different accessories that you would require to make it an experience that's equitable to at home with a high-end PC or a console or what have you. What needs to potentially happen with the hardware and or the connectivity? And Brad, we might start with yourself again. What needs to happen with hardware and connectivity to make or to help support a change potentially with cloud gaming?
I'll leave the connectivity to Stephen, because I'm sure technically he'll absolutely ace me on that.
I've got nothing.
But hardware-wise, we know that obviously mobiles are continuing to evolve more and more and more as we go through the space. So one will be like the power of just them to play games. I think the interoperability, if you look at like the Microsoft suite, for example, now where Xbox is connected to PC, is connected to mobile as well, like the ability for the hardware, but also the cloud part of it to be able to play and pick up a character on the bus or in your lounge room or on your PC and still have that same save point will kind of pick that up. And connectivity, but from a different side, I think mobile is actually our number one device when you pair it with tablet, is how we play games in Australia in terms of just frequency, more casual games probably than AAA. But when you look at that as well, one of the things mobile is challenged with, not because of cloud, but is also the social aspect. Lots of people play games to play with their friends, to have voice comms, you know, to banter and to have a good time as well. And it's a part that mobile, I'd say, hasn't captured yet in too many games, whereas PC and console has that in spades.
It's funny because a mobile was actually invented for communication.
Exactly, yeah. So it's flipped it, yeah.
Furthest behind.
And Brad, you're through to Stephen there in terms of connectivity. Do you want to build on that from a connectivity perspective, Stephen?
Yeah, so what was the initial?
Well, in terms of hardware and connectivity,
Yeah.
what needs to happen there to support a potential change with cloud gaming?
Yeah, so we need to have more servers, more local. Most of the players on cloud gaming are actually playing on on their PC or underperforming laptops or what sort of thing. I think, mobile is a very big space in gaming because it's convenient and convenience changes markets. But in order for mobile to really capitalize on the power of cloud gaming, it is going to be around the input-output of the mobile. So it's going to be heavily reliant on the devices that you can connect to your mobile so that you can interact with your mobile to game. You do have some mobile games that have the mobile controls, but when you're kind of set on your controller or your keyboard or your mouse, it's a very difficult thing to cross over to, and you might not necessarily play on mobile because it's just not it. So you do have devices like the Backbone and that come into market, which do integrate with your mobile. And I think the advent of those devices and accessibility to those devices and them getting more streamlined will introduce a bigger push for the cloud gaming into the mobile space. And obviously partnering with businesses and companies like Optus who bring that 5G connectivity to the table. So where we sit on the connectivity side, we obviously have to make these our data centers and processing power as local to the equation as possible, but that's all in the DC. So what you also need is that last mile connectivity through networks like 5G and the like, so that you have really fast connectivity for the input-output. So with those two things combined, that's kind of how the connectivity piece plays in. You've got to be connected all the way from data center, 5G, into the device, and the human has to connect to the device through the controller.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Dev, in terms of from your perspective as a competitive gamer, hardware is a big thing, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you see things needing to change within the hardware, the accessories, for instance, for you to feel confident with the FPS games, for instance?
Yeah, I think there's a big emphasis on having the best hardware, the best, graphics cards, CPU, and those things aren't cheap these days. So I think what cloud gaming does is get rid of this need to be tethered to your PC gaming setup. So I think in that sense, it makes it more accessible to a lot more people because, everyone has a phone, people have laptops, people have tablets. So yeah, to be able to just connect to any of those and play AAA titles and such a range of games, it's really, really cool. And
would you feel comfortable, or do you feel comfortable playing those games without, I don't know, the sanctity of your top-end PC?
Yeah, I mean, there's this pressure when it's FPS games. You don't want any lag. You don't want to miss your shots. You don't want to stuff up those 1v1 situations. So I think in that sense, people who are really, really competitively will probably lean always to their PCs for that reason. But for story games where you're just playing it for the enjoyment of it, especially being able to play it on the go anywhere from a portable device, I don't think there's that big emphasis in that sense. So I think that's fine. Okay, nice.
I've got on the latency thing, a fun fact there as well. When you're cloud gaming, because your computer is in the data center. So say if you're playing a game like an FPS, you're on your computer at home, you use the internet to get to the data center, to the servers, which connects to the gaming server. When you're in the cloud, your PC is in the DC. So you don't have that latency between your home and the internet. So the latency that you're challenging is the input-output lag. But then you've got advancements with NVIDIA, like reducing input-output lag with CPU and GPU, like predictive technology. So when you're actually gaming in the cloud, your latency when you're playing the game is actually, like say if you're playing an FPS at home and you see your latency in the top corner, when you're playing in the cloud, your latency will actually be less because you're seeing a representation of your, like a data center to data center connection, or that the gaming server that you're playing on is in the same data center as the cloud computer, which would be like less than a millisecond of latency, which is what's represented. So yeah, you get the counter to the latency. Actually, it can improve latency or make it worse if you're too far from the data center for the input-output.
Mm. And in terms of the home connectivity piece, that's a good question. So obviously that relies on a pretty good home connection if you're playing at home, obviously. Is there anything around that needs to change, or do we feel with home connectivity at the moment that it supports the experience that you would need for, say, GeForce Now, for instance?
Yeah, I think currently it supports the experience, but to Develique's point, you probably want to be cabled in, all that sort of thing, because you just want to have the best experience possible. But yeah, like story games and that sort of thing work perfectly fine. FPS has got like a little bit way to go, but yeah, for the most part, it all works. Obviously, the connectivity method that people want to use at home is over Wi-Fi, which is fine, but it is frustrating for me because we take so much effort to build the DCs, put the gear in, make the connectivity as low as possible, but then you'll get a support ticket that someone's like, oh, well, it's laggy, but they're on like 2.4 gig Wi-Fi. I can only take it so far. Like jump on the 5 gigahertz or put the Ethernet in. Yeah.
That makes sense. You heard it first here. Please change your Wi-Fi at home. Okay, so I know we touched on mobile AAA gaming before. Now that, and Develique, we might start with you for this one. AAA gaming at home on cloud sounds and seems quite a reasonable next step for us. But mobile AAA gaming, playing it in the park under the tree or at university or on the bus or train.
Do that.
Do you see it happening? And what needs to happen to support a world where we're playing AAA games virtually anywhere?
Yeah, I think we're definitely on the way there. I mean, like you said earlier, look how much tech has already changed from, like when I started gaming at the very, very start, playing on CRT monitors and things like that. So it's just getting, I feel like, smaller and more compact, and, things are getting more powerful. So yeah, I definitely see it happening not too far in the future for sure.
And would you be playing your
Yeah, I mean,
FPS?
any excuse to play anywhere, especially on the go. Yeah, I'm not going to say no. That's definitely
Nice.
Yeah.
And Brad, in terms of mobile AAA gaming, do you see that as a trend that's going to come through? And any thoughts on it?
I think it's the investment in the space, like we're talking about. One's the latency, but also is the publishers. Like a lot of the focus of publishers has been on building more console and PC titles because of the range that they have, because of the cost that it's been making. But like the connectivity, obviously, as it's solved and becomes more available, there's obviously a big lawsuit at the moment between a couple of people about Fortnite and bringing this to mobile. But we've seen major companies see that desire and want to bring the games there. There's a few hurdles and a few things that needed to be worked out. But from a publisher side, and I talked to a lot of the publishers in my role, there's a big interest in moving it into that mobile market. Like we can see it with Roblox and games that are easy lifts already, where people are able to kind of play that way. But I think there's definitely that desire. There's a combination between the technology that a phone can have, between the speeds that it actually requires. But like Dev said, who doesn't want to be able to play a better quality game or a game that you love everywhere? And I think that's, publishers know that as well, and they'll keep working towards that as a goal. Yeah,
nice. Now we're seeing, and to further that point, we're seeing certainly at Optus, we're seeing an influx of, I guess, mobile-specific cloud streaming or cloud gaming rather devices. You've got Logitech coming in with a handheld, streaming device in itself, and there's others. And Stephen, just in terms of mobile gaming, I mean, obviously with your affiliation with NVIDIA and GeForce Now, are you seeing a more of a global push with regards to these accessories, which probably make it, let's be honest, a bit better than playing on your phone? You need that tactility, or if that's a word, you need a tactile feel, and and you need, I guess, a more native
Yeah,
experience.
and the sensitivity
Yeah.
like of the controllers. Yeah, look, you do see the numbers of mobile cloud gaming start to increase as these devices become more there. But I think even those devices are still, they're at their infancy as well.
Yeah.
So they've been around for a few years, but you can start to see Backbone and that sort of things becoming a bit more mainstream, and the other devices similar. But yeah, from a global position and the NVIDIA side, the mobile side of cloud gaming is very, very early. Like, people are still gaming on their static setups, but we are seeing a very big increase in the mobile numbers, in line with these devices coming out, and in line with the larger networks also turning on their faster bandwidth, 5G networks and the like, which you're obviously fully across.
Yeah, and look, I can probably build on that. In terms of 5G, I know what we're seeing is, going back to this, if you, again, parallel this to video and what happened there, you can't do that with cloud gaming on 4G today. You couldn't cloud game on your mobile with 4G. The latency and the bandwidth just doesn't support that. But with 5G, obviously it does. So, again, I think it's still in its infancy because there's a whole ecosystem of things that need to change, including hardware and accessories. But it's one of those pieces where if you get 5G in there, it should help move things along. Yeah,
and those pieces need to change, and logically standing, those pieces are changing. So yeah, when you take that 10-year view, logically it kind of has to be the convenient way to game.
Yeah.
Which is obviously why we're behind it.
That's right. So let's take that 10-year view. So we heard a little bit from the panel at the start here, just in terms of their first gaming experience, and I think mine was the oldest. So again, I won't take that to heart. But let's take that theme and fast forward 10 years. Cloud gaming is, it's a thing. There might be other things. How do you expect yourself to be gaming in 10 years? And Brad, we'll start with you. How do you think you're going to be gaming 10 years from now? And will it be cloud gaming or will it be something else?
Hopefully a lot better than I am now as a starting point. So that would be, and hopefully still gaming. That's the dream. But I think in terms of how we play, I think we'll continue to see a couple of things. One is this combination of, at the moment what we're seeing is kind of, I guess, a turf war generally between major companies like Microsoft starting to acquire large chunks of the industry, they are with Activision Blizzard, like they did with Bethesda. So I actually think things more like an Optus sport model, like subscriptions, will continue to become more and more important, and exclusivities will become more, which will just change the ecosystem generally and to how stuff is at the moment. But I also think we'll see interesting parts of how the user might play games. There's been talk for a long time about what do controllers look like in the future and how do you interact with games. I'm not sure 10 years is enough for the Ready Player One version of treadmills and running around in that version of it, but the way that we interact with technology will likely change. We've seen things like Pokemon Go from an AR side do really interesting things. Will there be more AR games that are hits potentially with the speed and how it allows it and playing on the go? And then I think that, again, interoperability is a big word. I'm not sure we'll get there in that time frame, but the ability inside Epic's already doing between Rocket League and Fall Guys and Fortnite, we'll start to see bigger ecosystems where they allow more creator-based activities inside the systems, and we'll see more communities, more social time, more ability to create actually inside games. And I think that will continue to change the social behaviours of generations who now, after school or between uni or after work, go online to hang out, whether that's at a static setup in future or whether that's remote. So they're all things that are starting to happen, but in 10 years, I imagine those things will very much commonplace between the new tech that we have and the technology that we have to set it up.
Yeah, nice. Dev?
I'd love to see more, I guess, VR get more popular, because I feel like, it seems like next-gen tech, but it's not really a super popular thing currently right now. But like Brad was saying, I don't think we're going to get the Ready Player One. That does seem like the future, but maybe not in the next 10 years. I'd like to see cloud gaming become more of a thing for sure. I think already streaming servers in terms of videos, movies is already a big thing. So to see something like that come into the gaming world would be really, really cool. So yeah, something like that, I reckon.
Nice. And I think the VR shout is a really good one, actually. And it's one we haven't touched on here, but I think and this is something that we're seeing in some of the research that we're doing, is that VR is becoming more of a thing.
Yeah.
There's a content thing, and there's also again, like cloud gaming, there's a bit of an accessories and hardware thing that needs to happen there. But it would be cool to see, people playing VR.
Personally, I haven't really dabbled in enough VR because, I don't know why I don't have the really accessory for it, but I think it could be huge. So,
I
yeah.
think the price probably needs to come down.
Yeah,
as well.
it's not
quite
really
an expensive
accessible.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 10 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict, I suppose. There's things happening. I think the convenience of gaming, like as it gets more convenient, I think it'll become more common. NVIDIA say that every single person born today is a gamer. It could have VR, AR, all these different elements to it. I think that where I'm behind it is that I know whatever it is, it's going to need an enormous amount of compute power. It's very likely going to be cloud-based as well. And, because all those elements, they all are powered by compute in the cloud, effectively. And that's what'll make it very convenient. And so kind of what I'm trying to do is just build enough of that compute to pave the way for that future. But yeah, the way I see it working, it's going to be all subscription-based, it's going to be convenient. And actually the days, although building a computer is very fun, and I did that when I was 12 as well and since, it's actually, the manufacture of a GPU is quite a complex and process. And so historically, we make a GPU, how that GPU comes into be will set the speed, and then that gets sold to the consumer market. But there's actually quite a wasteful process doing this. So the GPU manufacturers are actually moving to put all of this compute power into the cloud for hyperscalers. So although it's really fun and great to build a PC and that sort of thing, I think one day, I'm not sure if it's in the next 10 years, but one day owning and building your own PC could be this archaic, it'd be like having a history car, like this thing from the 50s or whatever. Some people will do it as a hobby, but most people, some people I'm sure have a hobby today collecting DVDs. But if you went to someone's house and they had a DVD collection and wanted to put one on, it'd be like, okay, that's pretty retro.
Yeah.
I think the same thing will be for gaming, where having the computer next to you is this foreign concept, and when people are brought up to game, they'll just think and consider that computers and games, that's in the internet. It'll be like seeing a recycle bin on the computer today. It looks like a disc or whatever, and being like, oh, what's that? Not the recycle bin, sorry. But the concept will be that this stuff just lives in the internet, and I hope that it's within the 10-year thing, but I just know it'll require a lot of power to do.
Yeah, it will, no doubt. Well, that's enough from me. We've heard some pretty good insights there from the panel. So I'd be very happy to open up the floor to questions if there's a few. And I think there's a microphone potentially floating about. So I can't see because there's lights in my eyes. So if someone can help us locate a... Just one moment. I think we've got someone down the front who wants to ask.
Yeah, I was wondering, what do you think the perception is? How Sony's cloud stuff is in here. How do you think that's affecting the perception of cloud gaming when, Sony's one of the biggest players and you can't, assess their cloud gaming stuff here?
Stephen, do you want to have a first crack at that?
Yeah, so to break down the question, when is Sony coming to the cloud? Or?
Yeah, they've got the stuff in other countries, but it's not available here, which is, and Sony is one of the biggest players, so that's got to affect the perception of cloud gaming. Yeah,
I think Sony are a massive player and a massive player in content. Cloud gaming is so precise to get right, and a lot of people dabble, because a lot of big mega industries know it's the future, so a lot of them are dabbling. But I think we're really going to see NVIDIA become like the main driving force of the backbone of, like some people like Sony, like they're really good at content. And Microsoft are really good at buying publishers and OS. NVIDIA, like what they do is they make the best GPUs and the lowest latency and the best horsepower that powers all these things. So I think a lot of people, these big companies are kind of dabbling in other people's lanes. But where I see someone like a Sony coming in would be, when these mega corps kind of get together and do what they do well. Like you've seen with Microsoft and NVIDIA. So they've signed a deal now. So all of that content that Microsoft have been buying is now coming to GeForce now. So, how I see maybe Sony coming to the table in a bigger way is them doing what they do and letting the other people do what they do so that the gamers and the end users can have the best experience, which currently is GeForce Now. I hope that answers the question. But yeah, I'd like to see it become a thing as well.
Hey, Zeppi here, fellow content creator. This is probably more for Nathan and Stephen. What is the service provider industry doing to tap into the gaming market and the content creation market to create specific plans or internet plans for gamers and content creators alike? So more upload speed, less latency.
That's a great question. I can have a first crack at that. From an Optus perspective, we are looking at a very specific gaming-focused enhancements that we can deliver to customers. We do have a product called Game Path, for instance, at the moment, which from a traditional gaming perspective drives better latency outcomes for gamers in terms of where their traffic's going globally. There's also, and we are looking at cloud gaming, hence we're sponsoring this panel as well. We are looking at very specific functionality, and we will have some further announcements on this with regard to cloud gaming and driving better connectivity outcomes there as well, which will be very specific to the network that we own and run, and very specific to mobile as well. So we are looking at use case specific connectivity outcomes, which will provide a better gaming outcome, and you will hear more about that. Stephen,
yeah,
going to build on that?
Yeah, that's a good summary of the connectivity 5G space. And I guess from our side, what we can do, we've got certain things that we can do. We can put in new hardware, which is very expensive. It allows you to do higher resolution. We can play with toggles around creating like the SKUs. So we create the plan, like whether you're gaming for 3 hours, 8 hours, how long we try to keep the queue times down, whether ray tracing's turned on or off. But so we have all these toggles that we can play with, but it's still very early, very new. So we're still finding our feet and finding the market. And what we do to create those things is based on feedback. What we see people wanting to use and what plans and what pricing they can pay. We're just constantly balancing, obviously, what the consumer want, but also what we need to do to make sure this grows and thrives, as a business. We don't necessarily run GeForce Now in a profitable state. We grow it like we're in a growth state, but we need the investment of the consumers to come in. So we need to provide the right plan so that we can grow and bring all, the newest and the best stuff to the table. So it's a constant balancing act, but I hope that gives some clarity to the question.
Do you think VR games will ever be a part of cloud gaming?
Yes.
Brad, Develique, do you want to build on that at all? Or is it a similar yes?
I'd hope so yes.
Yeah, I'd hope so. I think I play a lot of RPGs now that my reflexes for FPSs have left me. But I really like to think that, eventually, like Starfield, Dev, for example, like you say that, like I've played way too many hours of Skyrim. Like I love the idea of actually being able to play that in a much more, another level of realism, both at home and on the go. So I do hope that VR continues to come and the speeds actually allow that to happen, because as a fan and someone that plays games, we love the story and like being lost in the immersion, and I think VR is the next part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And just to add to that as well, I think it's similar to some of the questions that we were talking about today. I think that there's an element of the hardware that needs to evolve and change before that gets to that point. I think it's great today, having used it. PS has got a version of it as well. and it's cool. But I think being tethered to a cord, I think when that sort of goes away, and maybe it's cellular or maybe it's Wi-Fi, but I think all of that sort of thing, if it's easier, I think that'll then make it a bit more accessible for people.
Yeah, and I think you'll also have that VR and mobile integration. Like, remember when the Galaxies came out at one year and you got the VR headset with it and that sort of thing? So I think, yeah, they are all interconnected in a deep way.
Hi. Sorry, I'm going to babble a little bit because I'm anxious and it might be a question, but we'll start off. How much do you all weigh? No, I'm kidding. I am Vexy and I have a friend behind me, Chucky, and he has big dreams. And at the moment, because you talked earlier about if more people used it, then they would work on it. And it sounds like that sort of implied to me you were saying that it needs more people to use it rather than build it and they will come. At the moment he has this idea, but we want to sort of do a product and there's no point doing it if you can't do it well. And you mentioned earlier that people are limited by like their connectivity and internet. If we made something mobile, what would you say if we were doing cloud gaming, like the best technology or something that we could do, a service, to make it as smooth as possible so that the cloud gaming experience is not limited by connectivity, assuming that there's no Ethernet cable? Is that can you get what I'm picking up what I'm putting down?
Yes,
yeah,
I think
great.
so. Are you asking that of myself or Stephen?
Anyone who wants to.
Anyone?
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a first crack.
I mean, I felt like you would be the best person to have.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm just being polite, I think. In terms of the mobile connectivity, we see a big opportunity in that. I mentioned 5G before. There's certain iterations of 5G that are coming. One is standalone, which we've announced, and a few of the other telcos in Australia have also announced. That version of 5G enables us to do some pretty cool stuff with connectivity, and also with regard to building on elements like providing prioritization for your game session over everyone else in that particular cell site. We are looking actively at productizing that so that if you're cloud gaming, for instance, and you need a really big pipe of data and you need it quickly, so you need low latency, we now have the ability with the generation of 5G that's now available and we're rolling out, which will allow you to get a better experience and allow you to nominate into that particular experience as well when you're cloud gaming. To take it further as well, what you can do is we can, based on the traffic type, say that bit of traffic is cloud gaming. We can go, well, that's going to go via priority, and if you've got background stuff happening on your phone like Instagram or whatever, just updating, that can go on the lower priority lane. At the moment, it doesn't work like that. At the moment, if you're on normal 5G and 4G, it's all the same and not necessarily prioritised. So I think those sorts of innovations need to come to market, which will allow you to have a better experience on the go. Does that answer that question?
It does. Is it, when you say it needs to come to market, is that like a 1 year, like a 5 year, or is that pushing too much to ask?
No, it's a good question. So it's a bit of a device and network thing. So not all devices are 5G standalone capable, and they're slowly rolling through. New iPhone, for instance, has got the chipset which allows you to do that. So as devices come onto the network which support that, that will enable us to productize a bit better.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Good question.
Hello. This is for a career approach type of question. So from a product development, UX, UI type of approach, in the next 10 years in gaming, if you want to get into product design, UX design for cloud, because that's where it's heading, how can you prepare yourself so that you're ready to head into that? And also kind of on her, enhancing that UX experience? It's
a good question. Brad, you're looking at me, so.
I'm assuming I was going to throw that to Steve or someone else, so I might be an expert now that part.
I mean, my view on it is when we make hires, a lot of the people that work at Pentanet and are involved in these projects, they're all gamers. So I suppose, if you want to be involved in the industry over this time period, play games and know how the industry's tracking, how do other UIs, and what's the UX currently, and what are the trends. Learn how to whether you need to learn front end or back end, but just, knowing, I don't know, my advice to do anything is just go play games.
Just play games and figure it out.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's
I
what I
can
do.
do that. I can play games for 10 years. That's fine. I've been doing it. Anybody else on them?
Well, I know a lot of people have got into games and into their jobs in games either by networking. Like gaming is a big but small community, particularly working in it. It's obviously a huge community of players, but there's a few thousand or thousands in Australia that are lucky enough to be able to get paid to do those things. So I think networking with the right people in those spaces where you want to work is a really important thing, where a lot of people have got jobs. Volunteering for the right places, not the places that are just going to burn you for a whole of your time and energy, but finding those right places as well where you might be able to learn or intern in some of those places as well. I know a lot of people that have got their start in those places and gone on to do really cool things. So that'd be my advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you,
volunteer
guys.
a bit of your time and maybe build something as like a showcase to get the attention.
Yeah,
outside.
beautiful. Thank you.
Just with like the recent leaks from Xbox and Microsoft and all that, with their plans going forward for about the next 8 to 10 years, with them looking at things such as cloud hybrid and just cloud-only handhelds as well. How do you see cloud being able to be integrated, not just as everything being cloud, but sort of as an add-on to traditional hardware and being able to be used sort of in tandem to create a more enhanced experience?
Stephen?
Yeah, look, ultimately the cloud will just give whatever device a lot more horsepower. So as you get more horsepower coming to like a local device, that can certainly get a boost. And in terms of like the Microsoft connection, I think that like all of that, for Microsoft to be doing, and I've probably got to be careful what I say. For Microsoft you can't really go and monopolize industries and that sort of thing. So you can't really go and just buy all the publishers without making it available. And you've got to remember as well that with cloud, like say with GeForce Now, Microsoft also get their bit because it's Windows based. So even though that Windows computer might be shifting to the cloud, you've got tens of thousands of Windows computers running, which also need to pay the licensing. So I think, these things will always be deeply connected, and with hybrid connectivity in different devices, I think they will still draw power from whoever's running the cloud the best and most efficiently, which I think NVIDIA are 10 years ahead on that.
Thank you.
Before we get the next question, I was just going to say we've got quite a line of questions, which is awesome. I think what we'll do is the fellow at the back there with the beard, hello, you're the last question.
Hi, this is quite GeForce Now specific, but I was wondering with the new launches of graphics cards that are coming out, they come with new features like DLSS 3.5 that are specific to the latest gen of the graphics card. I was wondering how viable it is for when the new graphics cards launch. Are they going to be upgraded with the data centers for the GeForce Now? Are they going to be upgraded with the new graphics cards straight away, or does the market needs to grow more for that to be viable for every new launches?
I think and I'll assume it's directed at me.
I think so.
Yeah, we're very committed to growing and building and bringing the best. Like, as you know, we had the first tier priority. We've just launched 3080. The card in the cloud is not a literal 3080. It's a DC card. So it's a much more powerful card. And then that's fragmented and dimensioned to give you the same power and assets that like a 3080 or something would give. The next tier up is to, like 4080, even the 5000 series. The next step up is to have cards in the cloud that are so powerful, we can turn whatever it is on and off to generate a consumer card. And it's very much the plan to, we want to grow and keep bringing these things. But the ability to do that isn't actually that far around the corner to give literally like the best. Like where cloud gaming will go is that don't worry about buying a new card every year. Like you get this subscription and like the latest and greatest thing comes out, as I was chatting to before, you've already got it. Just log in and you've got one. But how that actually works on the back end, it's not rows and rows of 3080s or 4080s. It's much more powerful chips that are dimensioned to give you the same or better than the consumer card.
Thank you.
Awesome. Kind of similar what he said. recently there's been some advancements to like emulation. There's this technology called run through, which basically like reduces like input lag in games. I was wondering if there's like any similar like sort of technologies that are native to the hardware that could like help reduce it.
I think that might be another one for you.
Yeah, there are, and you know that's what NVIDIA are effectively. They're like an R&D company that specialize in making cards. So yeah, the answer is yes. Like there's technologies like that. They're working on new technologies, and those technologies will be, you know, replicated and mimicked from the cloud, from actually more expensive GPUs that aren't for the consumer market.
Oh yeah, cool.
G'day. We've mentioned a lot about low latency, 5G, that sort of thing. Do you see in the future folks who live in regional and remote areas where their connectivity is not very good and not likely to get very good in the near future? Are there anything in the future that you would see that would improve the experience for people who are on satellite, live in remote areas, or are we hoping for 5G to get out there more, for more people to be connected to fibre? So we're talking about the very high end mostly, but folks who don't have the connectivity that might want a cloud game, do you see anything that's going to help those folks and be available for them?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it's a somewhat difficult one because I think, you know, given the breadth of Australia, rural communities, it can be very, very difficult. It can be very difficult to get the connectivity that we're talking about, to get that sort of gameplay experience as well. In terms of, you know, from a 5G specific perspective, I know from an Optus perspective, we're very committed to regional Australia and driving 5G as far as we can. There's other technologies that we're looking at. We did make an announcement recently with SpaceX, which is probably not gaming specific, but it also drives that commitment to regional Australia. In terms of gaming though, I think what it's going to require is, you know, obviously there's different options out there. There is Starlink directly available today. There's also NBN and Sky Muster, which is available as well in those super rural communities. I think that's getting there, but satellite connectivity is probably not where you want to be going for cloud gaming, for instance. So I think from a telco perspective, what it requires is driving 5G as far as we can, but also, I mean, NBN is a big driver of connectivity in the home in those areas as well. So driving more fixed wireless is obviously a key thing, I think, and also fibre as far as you can is naturally always going to be probably the preferred to solve that.
What sort of latency do you get to Sydney, assuming you're rural?
I work with rural folks at work, but I'm from WA and I've got a decent connection in Perth, but it's still 50, 60 milliseconds to over here in the eastern states. So you're talking. Well,
I'm from Perth also. We've got servers in Perth, so maybe if you want to give it a go, check your settings. 3080 is only available out of Sydney, but you'd be surprised. Like if you have like under 30 milliseconds latency to the DC, like if you run a speed test, you could cloud game, you know, from a non-FPS point of view.
Hello, so I've tested quite a bit of cloud gaming recently, such as xCloud and Pentanet itself. And I was wondering, like when I've showed it to my mates and all, they're all impressed how it works and how it runs. But most of the time they see it as, looks like a proof of concept or like a beta stage. What's needed to make it more mainstream than just like, oh, it's an add-on, or like it's an extra feature, not a standalone.
Was it their perception that it was beta, or was it performing like a
Well,
beta?
no, it was performing fine. It's just they're all amazed by it, but like they just, yeah.
It's too hard to,
yeah.
like, I mean, the answer's there, right? What does it need to not be a beta? Well, it's not a beta. It's good technology and it works. You just need to get rid of the stigma that it doesn't work because it's there in front of you working, and then just use it. So,
Are you able to maybe elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah,
Is it
so
more?
like
Is it
what's needed for the providers to make it seem more of a finished product and like make it mainstream?
Just to ask though, is that coming from a perspective of connectivity, or are you talking more about just from the UI and the experience side of things? Is that just want to get a feel for that?
It would be more UI and experience side of things. Yes.
Okay. I think I can probably see where you're coming from. I mean, having used GeForce myself and used other services like xCloud, etc., I think the problem that they have is that, you know, especially with the Xbox service, and I'm not speaking out of school, it's just a personal opinion. It's kind of, when you go on there, you're playing a service which is obviously native to another type of gaming, which is console or what have you. And it's kind of the linking of services or something like that, which is something new that you've got to get your head around. So I think that sort of thing where it's, and this will probably flip as cloud gaming potentially, you know, becomes mainstream, that UI and that experience around that's designed for is less around, you know, PC and console. It becomes natively driven for cloud gaming, and I think there's definitely awareness around that though, and I think that's going to be changing.
Yeah. If I could give my 2 cents worth, I think there needs to be a big push for marketing as well, because obviously I'm in the gaming scene, and myself, like, cloud gaming wasn't a real knowable concept to me. And obviously getting involved with GeForce and whatnot and getting on it, I didn't realize it was in such a playable state, like your friend said. So I think, yeah, maybe if it's a bit more marketed to the wider gaming community to actually know that it is in a state that is playable at the moment, I think, yeah, it could also make it become more mainstream as well.
And access, probably the other point. So definitely agree the marketing is the visibility. But to your point, the access, like everyone has that moment the first time they played an Xbox Connect or a new console or a new PC where like it felt too good to be true. Like you don't get those things without touching it yourself. So I think part of that as well is like the access. So as more people use the cloud, as use GeForce now, you know, come to your house and watch it and have that same moment where they're like, is this a thing, or is like, do you just have access to something else? We'll see more and more players pick it up.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Hello, I have a question about monetization of cloud gaming. So obviously with traditional hardware, you have a large upfront cost, and presumably with cloud gaming, it's a subscription service. Where do you guys see the sort of the monetization model changing over the next 5-10 years? Obviously with games as a service being a buzzword thrown around, or even other monetization models in video games themselves. Are we likely to watch a 30-second ad for 5 minutes of cloud gaming time, or what's everyone's thoughts?
Would you watch a 30-second ad for 5 minutes?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll take that feedback. But yeah, like, oh, sorry, I forgot the question.
It's just on what your thoughts about where monetization of cloud gaming will go in the next 5-10 years. Is it likely to stay a subscription, or is subscription backlash likely to affect it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there'll always have to be a subscription because it's very expensive to operate and very expensive hardware. So you need, as a business, and it can't be a charity cloud gaming thing, it has to operate. So there'll always tend to be a subscription. Maybe the price of that subscription becomes more affordable as you get more scale. There is, you know, the potential like ads and that sort of thing in there. I share the same opinion. It's not something I want to say, and it's not necessarily 30 seconds for 5 minutes if it comes to pass. But you know, there's a huge amount of free users on the platform. Like we have to have free users because we want people trialing it and seeing that it works, but that is like the most expensive part. So, you know, if someone's waiting in a queue anyway, you can, you know, say if there's something running while they're waiting in a queue, what's actually happening on the back end, it might be frustrating to a free user because like, I don't want to watch an ad, but it's actually helping to grow the thing to make it more accessible, you know, over time. You know, when we're talking about this 10-year period, it's very early days and it's, you know, very expensive thing, but yeah, I'd say it's gonna always be a subscription-based But really what the subscription is, it's rather than needing to go buy a console or a PC, you're just kind of breaking that down into a small cost each month, which is very convenient. People now access their media by doing that. So I think it's the model that's likely to stick, and it's the model that's been selected moving forward. But there could be some little bits and pieces coming in between. But
I think from a marketing side as well, you talk about games as a service, and I think it's a really interesting thing, right? We've already seen some of the biggest games in the world are free to play in inverted commas, free to play one way or another. We've seen more than ever the monetization models move to battle passes and to skins and to season passes, and like depending on what game, it's called something else. Mostly when you do the maths, it works out to be the same as buying the disc or the copy or downloading it used to be. So I think the games are getting more expensive to make. I think GTA 6, they're talking 1.2 to 1.5 billion. Like, even to think of that 5 to 10 years ago it's ridiculous to think that that's the model and that they'll make that back probably within the first year, in terms of how it works. So yeah, I think there's a natural trade-off from a marketing side, and the job of marketing, if it understands gamers as players and the audience, is to not ruin the experience. So to your point, like, you don't want to get it where you're halfway through a level and you're fighting something and you get some pain in the ass pop-up come up and like ruin what you're doing. So there's a lot of natural places for, not quite the Candy Crush version of it, but I think where opt-in advertising can do those kinds of models. Like, I don't know about you, but I've sat in way too many lobbies for Fortnite and COD and League where I'm waiting for 10 minutes to do nothing. Like, personally, depending on what I'm doing, I'm more than happy to watch something to kill some of that time while I'm on Discord and talking to people in between for a double XP, for a skin, for a bit of blue essence, for whatever I might like. So I think if the trade-off from a marketing side is worth it for the player, then generally we see actually, it's about 60 to 70% positive feedback. If it's something that someone's put no thought into and is literally just like replacing a TVC or an out-of-home ad into a gaming environment, people normally hate it, and they should, because it's lazy marketing.
Cool, thank you everyone.
No problem. And lucky last. Sorry you had to stand there for so long.
No, it's fine, and I've still failed at formulating my question, so I feel a little bit self-conscious asking this. But just building further from what you were saying in regards to the complexity of building GPUs, and let's dial back the consumer grades and try to push them to the cloud. Have there been any sort of ethics conversations within the community, essentially, about consumer freedoms and consumer choice and taking away physical games, so you lose cultures like you have now, like the modding scene, for example, for Morrowind and Skyrim, where you've got all the user content that's no longer added. And also, I'm not talking this public domain stuff much further down the track, but in terms of 90s, 2000s games being available for years to come because you can move them across hardware and legally emulate and all that, versus some fantastic cloud-only games that have existed in the last decade and the servers have been shut down and they're essentially lost to human history. Any comments on any of that?
Anyone? It's a big question.
Yeah.
Brad?
It's a good question.
Maybe. Dev?
I think one of the hardest, we're all thinking, that's not the question we thought we were going to close with. So I think one of the, as a player, I'll just speak from a player side here, I think one of the best things about games is the ability to play something ongoing and long-term, to your point. So, right, again, the developers have to exist for the games to exist, which is a key part of it, I guess, for cloud ongoing. But I do hope that there's a way that the subscriptions or the purchases of them can continue to live on in that way. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not going to pretend I own the tech part of it, but like whether it's having them vaulted or whether it's having them compressed, or like how are they that can exist. So those things that you grew up playing, whether it's for nostalgia or just because it's been a community for decades of your life, still exist post, a server being shut down or a kind of a cloud transitioning. So it's probably more from a tech side and how it works. But
yeah, and it's probably more of the publisher side as well, which I'm the technology based. It is unfortunate to see, like, if those things happen, because I remember like some of the early mods and stuff, they kind of create memories. And unfortunately, if that does come to pass, like the mainstream might move away from that. But I think, modding communities and that sort of thing will kind of always find if that's their jam and that's their hobby, and to be involved in that, they'll find a way potentially to do that. It just might not be part of the mainstream service. But yeah, I can't speak too much on it because it's obviously the publisher side and not necessarily the hardware, which I'm more involved in.
And sorry again, any comments on the consumer choice and the ability to, you know, take a game that was made for a PC and play it on a handheld device that came out 20 years later because it can handle it, so you can port it across, or any of that in terms of, because with cloud, we're definitely going in the direction of you must have a Microsoft PC, you must have an NVIDIA, whatever, to connect to service A. I can't take my, you know, 15-year-old Linux laptop just because it's got the grunt to run some game and do whatever I want with it. It's very much a you must have the latest and greatest, you own nothing type society. Just, I'm sorry, I know it's a little dark. I just wanted any kind of comment or any kind of thoughts in the industry towards any of that.
Yeah, look, it is a tough one, and I appreciate where that's coming from as well. I think, you know, I think you touched on it, Stephen. It creates those memories, and you want to be able to continue to use those. I think I don't think there's necessarily a conscious discussion around that, though. Aside from the communities that would drive that, I think there's a way to continue to allow those games to obviously be played on different platforms. But is there a conscious, I guess, you know, community of people within gaming publishers that are focused on that? I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong. I'd be happy to be proven wrong, because I think, you know, they're focused on the next release and where they're going to obviously, you know, make money from the next release. I think that's kind of a reality of that. But I think, you know, with a lot of those communities, the stronger they are, the more that's going to stay there, and it will become, you know, we kind of touched on it before. You know, PCs. The hardware itself is going a little bit like that too, right? So the PC will become potentially a hobby that you do and is very niche in terms of building it and you know, admiring that for what it is. And I think some of those titles will probably become the same. And I think that's just a reality, but I think it's the community that sort of drives that. Thank you. And thank you. That was a lot of questions, and thank you to the panel. It was a really good discussion. I hope you got a lot out of it, and thank you for coming. And of course, enjoy PAX 23. It's pumping out there, so enjoy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Well done. Thank you.